once again for episode 81 of The Horror Guys. This is Kevin.
And this is Brian.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies that we saw.
Yeah, we got 4 horrors and a short. It's almost like a full house.
Almost.
Well,
we should get right to it, eh?
We should get right to it. Yeah, this week we'll be watching some more classics. We'll begin with the Hammer film, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde from 1971. The old-time sci-fi classic, which is sort of horror-y also.
Yeah, it was sort of.
It came from outer space from 1953. Still in the land of, was that the black and white one?
It was. Yeah.
It was, yes. Mm-hmm. And we move up the timeline a little bit to 2019's Brightburn. And also Legend of the Muse, which just released a few weeks ago.
Brand spanking new movie. Yeah.
And there's probably even some spanking goes on in it. Well, some people get spanked.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some smackdowns anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, here we go.
It came from outer space.
It did.
This was the first time I had seen this all the way through. I'd seen bits and clips and stills. I thought this was very interesting after all this time getting to see it.
Yeah. We've got 2 of these older, almost more sci-fi films than horror. This one and one we'll talk about next week. This one was black and white and the other one wasn't.
And very science fiction. It's alien invaders, so, you know.
Well, once we start getting into the 1950s, we get away from Dracula and Frankenstein and start getting into outer space monsters, nuclear mutant animals and creatures, giant bugs, and things like that. The atomic age completely changed the face of horror.
Yeah, it did pretty much.
It did. Uh-huh. Dracula wasn't scary. A giant man created from an atomic bomb. Whoa, that was scary.
No, that's some scary stuff.
Because, that could really happen. Well, nobody really knew in 1953, and it's all this radioactive stuff. It was new. Nobody understood it. Today, they teach radioactivity. They teach nuclear stuff in schools. Little kids can explain to you how atomic power works. Back in these days, it may as well have been magic.
So, it was scary.
Yeah.
Scarier, yeah.
Well, they were even doing, the nuclear bomb drops out in the desert and on the islands at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when kids had to do the hallway bomb drills and hiding under the desks and stuff. That may have been a little later than this. I don't know that, though. I'm not sure of the history on the atomic stuff.
And this was a time of fear of the Russians spies and Russians invading and Russians infiltrating and taking over. And, aliens were kind of a stand-in, I think, for a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Red Menace, except these guys were kind of green.
The Gray Menace.
Black and white, yeah. They only bleed green. Well, like I said, this one came out in 1953, directed by Jack Arnold, who did a lot of the movies in the 50s. Written by Harry Essex and Ray Bradbury. Stars Richard Carlson, Barbara Rush, Charles Drake, hour and 21 minutes. Link in the show notes, as always, if you want to pick up a copy. It's available on a really nice Blu-ray or DVD, and wouldn't surprise me if you couldn't find it streaming somewhere, too. So what'd you think?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's a classic. Everybody should see it.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Oh, I thought so. Yeah.
All right. Well, we begin in Sandrock, Arizona as dusk falls. John and Barbara are spending a quiet evening at his house. They're flirting and talking about getting married as he stands outside and looks through his telescope. They're about to kiss when suddenly a giant meteorite flies across the sky and crashes into something else and then hits the ground. They go to investigate.
Spoiler, it's not a meteorite.
It's not. It's complicated, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. We zoom in on the meteorite and see that it's a spaceship. Well, there's a spoiler already.
Well, we kind of knew that going into it.
Because it came from outer space.
Yeah.
Its door opens and we see various mechanisms working inside. We then see a creature walk out through the door. John arrives by helicopter and goes down into the crater to investigate. John and the alien watch each other. The alien then shuts the door to the ship, which causes a landslide that buries the whole ship underground.
And there goes any proof that he had.
Spaceship? What spaceship?
All I see
What
is a
came
pile of
from outer
rubble.
space?
There's nothing there. You're crazy, John.
Yeah, there's a whole mountain falls on top of it, so they're not going to dig it out. Ellen and Pete tell him not to tell anyone that he saw Martians down there. Of course, he does tell the police, and hey, they don't believe him.
Crazy John.
He says, "It came from outer space." And John and Ellen then nearly hit the creature on their drive home. They're like the only ones that ever see the thing.
Mm-hmm.
We see that it leaves a trail behind it when it walks.
Sparkles.
Yeah.
It's like glitter.
I don't know if it's ice or
trail.
glitter or what that is.
They never really
Slug
say.
slime.
Crystallized slug slime.
Yeah. The scientists come out the next day and they all think it was just a meteorite. The town, and especially Ellen's father, the sheriff, doesn't understand Putnam, a science fiction writer who they think is weird. Funny, the main character is a science fiction writer.
And he happens to see an alien.
Written by Ray Bradbury. Still, he knows one of the creatures got out of the ship before it was buried. Frank, the phone lineman, says there is something weird on the phone lines.
And he's the professor from Gilligan's Island.
Not yet. That comes in the future.
Yeah, but
before he was a professor, he built he made the phones.
He's gonna be.
Yeah, the professor was in that sci-fi one we watched a couple weeks ago too.
He was all kinds of things besides the professor on
Yeah, he
Gilligan's
was.
Island. Yeah.
Before the Gilligan's Island. Afterwards,
yeah.
I think he was kind of typecast.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, he and his assistant George soon run into the thing on the road, and it does something to them. John and Ellen park behind their truck, and they find the thing's trail. George is alive, but he's acting strangely, almost possessed.
And looks right into the sun. And,
Yeah.
he's acting odd. Oh, isn't that beautiful? As he stares right at the sun.
John sees Frank the lineman's body, but he doesn't say anything. The alien tells Frank and George that it can change shape to match theirs. John brings the sheriff, but of course everything is gone by the time they get there. Isn't that always the way it works?
Yeah, generally,
Leave someone behind to watch the body.
Right.
The alien, in the form of George and Frank, tell John to leave them alone before something terrible happens that John can't even imagine.
And this was kind of, well, and it's pointed out in various trivias and things about the movie that the aliens aren't necessarily benign or harmful. They just want to do their thing and go.
Yeah, they're not here to conquer the earth.
Yeah, they're not here for evil or for, not like Day the Earth Stood Still where he's here to help or,
Just here to fix a flat tire.
We just want to make repairs and move on. Leave us alone.
Well, meanwhile, a group of 3 miners hear strange noises coming from the mine shaft. The mine shaft that goes right below where the meteor hit. Funny, nobody thought of that before.
Huh.
The creature gets them as well. Frank and George's wives go to the sheriff, who might be starting to believe. The sheriff explains that the hardware store had a bunch of electrical equipment go missing. Ellen then runs into Frank in the desert, and he wants a ride to the mine. He possesses her as well. John gets a phone call telling him to go to a particular spot in the desert, and the sheriff tags along. Ellen leads him to the mine. The aliens are repairing their ship, and they need John's help. They explain that they're not yet ready to meet humanity, and humanity's not ready to meet them, but they mean us no harm. They landed here by accident. John finally gets a look at one of them, and it's just a big eye on a blobby body. Blobby body.
And they don't actually possess the people. They knock out the real people and assume their shape.
Yeah, they're not possessed. They're shapeshifters.
Yeah. But they don't quite get it right. I mean, you can tell they're off. They
look perfect.
They look
don't
perfect.
Act right.
They don't act right because they don't have that human thing down yet.
Yeah, it's so much easier to make perfect duplicates when you're acting.
Yeah.
I'm not really Brian. I just look like him.
That's right.
Yeah. I just play him on podcasts. Well, the sheriff is now concerned. Why do the aliens want so many hostages? Why did they take John's clothes? Where are all these hostages? He refuses to listen and starts setting up a posse to attack the old mine. The posse shoots at Frank's truck, and it bursts into flame. That was easy.
Yeah, but kills one of the aliens too in the process. Yeah.
John heads to the mine, and he ends up shooting one of the creatures, who then falls into a deep pit and dies. The head alien, who looks like John now, explains that they will destroy the Earth rather than be captured by the human mob. John convinces them to let the hostages go, and they do. The aliens resume work on their ship. One of the miners suggests closing the mine with dynamite, and that would keep the posse out. Boom!
Works, too.
The posse arrives to a collapsed mine, and the aliens have time to work. Minutes later, the ship launches and leaves. The end. For now.
So it did have the horror aspect of the people being abducted, and
it was as much horror as Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Less than that.
Well, they were a little more malicious.
Yeah, but they had his sweetheart, and he frantically trying to negotiate.
And there is a monster, and you do get to see it.
Please don't kill her and everybody.
Well, this was, according to Steven Spielberg, one of the big inspirations for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it is. It's a lonely spot out in the desert with the aliens and all that.
Yeah, I can see some.
And there's a confrontation at the end.
I can see some seeds of that. Yeah.
It's got aliens who really don't care one way or the other about humanity. They're here for their own reasons. They just want to fix their ship and head back onto their journey.
Mm-hmm.
It was entertaining, although I would have to say it's a little bit slow-paced. No one really died except for one of the aliens, and it's more of a sci-fi mystery than a true horror film.
Definitely more sci-fi than horror, I'd say. But very good.
I say it qualifies. It's not out there as a non-horror film, but not going to scare anybody.
Yeah.
So, meet any good women lately?
Jumping up to 1971, yes. Ms. Hyde.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you hadn't, we could make one.
Just drink a potion and become one yourself.
Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. Did you like it?
This was my favorite of any of the Jekyll stories that I've ever seen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, of any of the Jekylls, the variations on it, and making, this is my favorite.
This is one of those ones they used to
weirdest.
show. They used to show this like almost every weekend. I mean, if you watch the late night horror movies, this was on at least twice in a summer. So I've seen this one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, when I was 12, I didn't appreciate it as much.
Okay.
It's much better as an adult, I think.
This was the first time I'd seen it.
Well, there you go.
I was delighted. Yeah.
So definitely a thumbs up from both of us on this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Spoilers ahead.
Yeah.
Director, well, not really a spoiler. He turns into a woman this time. But
the title kind of gives that away. I bet you'd guess.
Yeah. Directed by Roy Ward Baker, written by Robert Louis Stevenson, sorta, kinda, and Brian Clemens, who I suspect had a lot more to do with it. Stars Ralph Bates, who we've seen on several Dracula and Frankenstein movies, Martine Beswick and Gerald Sim, hour 34 minutes, link in the usual places. All right, so we both like it?
Mm-hmm, very much. Yeah.
All right. Well, we start out with a shot of a man standing by a wanted poster for the Whitechapel Murderer. The man we see follows a working girl down the dark alley. Could he be Jack the Ripper?
Uh-oh.
We see the sign again, so yeah, it seems pretty likely. The sign reads, very distinctive description of the killer.
This is just so helpful. Yeah.
A tall man wearing a tall hat and a dark cloak.
And this is, London of this era. That would be like 3/4 of the male population.
Anyone who could afford better than a little cheap cap.
Uh-huh. That was the height of fashion. Okay, that narrows it down.
That'd be like today, look for a murderer. He's wearing a suit and tie. Well, we see Jack stab a girl to death. He then cuts something out of the girl and puts a piece of her in his case. Then he runs away. He goes inside his building and washes his hands and his knife. It's Dr. Henry Jekyll, a 30-year-old male. He writes his story in his journal, which segues into a flashback of what actually happened. Jekyll was looking to develop a universal antivirus and claims that he's already cured diphtheria. Cholera is next on his list, and his colleague Dr. Robertson whines that his experiments will take the rest of his life. But yeah,
But that's major work.
He's curing a major disease
this is okay
every year.
if this happened, but yeah, he persuades him, well, that's not fast enough. You need to do great things now,
Cure
like this week, all at once.
Yeah, maybe a little too ambitious.
Yeah. But it wouldn't be much of a movie if he hadn't bit off more than he could chew.
Yeah, but this is like the 1890s or so. How many diseases would be left at this point?
Not many if he'd just stuck to it.
Oh, well. Jekyll then decides that he wants to cheat death so he can live long enough to cure everything. You cure enough of them diseases, that kind of happens.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
He wants the elixir of life. He stops by the morgue to pick up a few spare parts, and then he gets right to work. Meanwhile, the girl downstairs, named Susan, has a bit of a crush on Jekyll, and she watches him go out at night. Jekyll manages to keep a fly alive for the human equivalent of 280 years. This thing lives for about 3 days, but this one lived for a week and a half, so he figures out if it were a human, it would be almost 300 years old.
But there's another side effect, too, as his friend notices, well, those are eggs on the side of the glass. I thought you said that was a male fly.
He swears it's a male fly, but no, it's laid eggs. It's a female fly.
Huh, yeah.
He must have made a
Must have
mistake.
made a mistake, yeah.
Yeah. Then he hires these two guys named Burke and Hare, look it up, to get more body parts, and they are quite efficient. He finally tries his elixir on himself. He gags and chokes and wanders all over the house in pain, and then finally collapses on the floor. When he gets up, he's a woman now.
Quite a lovely woman.
Howard, of course, he examines himself in the mirror, or she examines herself quite... they examine themselves quite thoroughly in the mirror.
Yes, getting used to the novelty of it.
What are those?
Whoa! And I'm glad that I guess there was some initial talk. Ralph Bates, the guy that plays Dr. Jekyll, wanted, and they thought maybe it would work to have him play both characters.
I think it was better this way.
I think it was better this way to have it a real physical change.
You don't see a whole lot of crappy makeup or special effects. It's a real woman.
And I
now.
think it would have just come across as he was insane. Whereas this is more of a magical, mad scientist, a physical transformation.
Howard, Susan's brother, barges in to see if everything is okay.
Oh, and hello! I didn't realize there were. Oh my God, she's naked. I mean, excuse me, miss.
That's pretty much how it goes.
It's an awkward moment. Yeah, she's topless. Yeah.
Well, he likes what he sees, but he doesn't stay long
because he's a gentleman.
Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah.
She soon passes out, and in a few hours, Henry is back. He explains to Susan that Mrs. Hyde is his sister, which pleases both Susan and Howard. Everybody gets who they want.
And funny, you never see them both at the same time.
You don't.
Yeah.
Well, bad things happen to Burke and Hare. Susan brings lunch to Henry. Henry needs more parts to make more of his formula, so now he goes out for women himself rather than hiring Burke and Hare.
And he's become addicted to the process and kind of a little bit schizoid. She's pushing him from inside his head, and
she wants to be in charge, and he doesn't really mind that much.
Yeah.
So he goes home with another call girl, and this time he kills her himself. He makes more elixir, and once again becomes a woman. Yeah,
it requires a key part of the woman's brain,
which has never been, never specifically said.
It wasn't that specific? Okay, I thought I was thinking it was some part of the brain.
It looks that way, but just, we don't know.
Yeah, anyway, it requires fresh women for a new batch, yeah.
So he becomes a woman again, and this time she pulls a curtain down off the wall and wraps it around herself.
And suddenly it's a dress.
A very elegant dress.
So a mighty fine-looking dress.
Ladies, if you want a good dress, don't go to the dress shop. Just pull the curtain off the wall. It looks fine.
Wrap it around yourself, tie a knot here and there. And
it looks really good.
It looked really good, yeah.
She immediately runs into Howard again, whose eyes nearly pop out of his head. Well, hello.
Yeah.
The transformation doesn't last very long, so he needs to keep killing women for raw ingredients.
And I liked how they filmed the transition. Usually it was her hand they would show, and she'd be doing whatever, and suddenly it'd be a guy's hand again.
You'd see the hairy male hand.
And she'd
there.
have to, hide it and then turn and then, get out of here, go away, I have to be alone.
She gets a little warning, but not much.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Robertson examines the corpses, and he figures out pretty quickly that Jekyll is doing the dirty deed. He and a policeman stake out Jekyll's house, but Jekyll never goes out that night. It's only some woman going out.
Huh, go figure.
Yeah. Now, it's Mrs. Hyde's turn to kill. And since Jekyll never...
Actually, it's Ms.
It
Hyde.
is Ms. Hyde, yeah.
Yeah, because she's a widow. Yes, that's how she explains it.
Yeah. Well, you'd be a Mrs. if you were married.
Yeah, I think she
You're
goes...
thinking of the remake Ms.
I think she goes by Miss, though, doesn't she?
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Well, anyway. Yeah, now it's her turn to kill. Since Jekyll never went out, that pretty much exonerates him when someone else turns up dead.
Huh.
Not guilty.
Not at all.
The next morning, Jekyll finds himself strangely attracted to Howard, of all people. Henry, Mr. Henry Jekyll, is now attracted to Howard, and that's not the way he normally swings.
The lines are blurring.
He also starts arguing with himself in the mirror. Miss Hyde's becoming more and more dominant inside him. Robertson comes by to congratulate Jekyll on his new girlfriend. That evening, Robertson comes back and sees Mrs. Hyde, who seduces him quickly and kills him even quicker. Next morning, Jekyll wakes up and destroys his lab equipment. He's had enough. He changes then without the serum. She's in control now. Susan and Howard both visit as Hyde begins to change back, so she throws them both out. Jekyll then makes a date with Susan to go to the opera. Jekyll doesn't show up, but Hyde does. She sneaks up behind Susan with a knife, but Jekyll starts to take over, and Susan escapes. We move forward in time to the scene from the opening. The blind man we've seen so many times turns out to be Mr. Hare, who is now blinded, and he knows who the murderer is. The police come for Jekyll, who is finishing up writing in his journal. Soon there's a crazy chase across the rooftops of London, which proves that this is a Hammer film.
Yep.
And it goes badly for Jekyll, and he falls to his death.
She falls to her death.
They fall to their death,
their
yes.
death, yeah.
And we've said before how Hammer films often end with the house burning down. Falling off a roof is a common
Is another
one,
trope, too. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Well, we never really find out what Jekyll and the Ripper is cutting out of the dead women.
Not specifically,
Yeah.
no.
It was a nice touch to tie in the Dr. Jekyll story with Jack the Ripper, though. Makes it sound a little more believable and realistic.
Yeah.
And I remember, like I said earlier, I remember this being on TV all the time when I was little, and I thought it was one of the more boring Hammer films. And I haven't seen it in many years, but as an adult, I think I appreciate it a lot more.
Well, probably the version you saw had all the nudity cut out, too. It was on television.
Very popular.
Yeah.
It didn't have that much nudity.
It was kind of key, though, I thought.
Yeah.
I think it would have definitely lacked something without it.
Okay.
I was reading in the trivia somewhere that she agreed to the full topless and her butt, but she wouldn't agree to a pubic shot. That she didn't want a full frontal, but still had.
Well, it wouldn't have worked real on a Hammer film anyway.
Still had to be nude on set. So it was a quote closed set, but there were people up in the rafters, and she could see people on the perimeter.
Wasn't that closed?
Yeah.
Well, it's got a lot of subtle and not so subtle humor. From the morgue attendant, who is something else, to Dr. Robertson, most characters have some really funny lines. There's a lot of humor in this one. It's also funny how Susan and Howard are vying for the same person's attention in two different personas. Overall, I give this one a strong thumbs up, and it holds up pretty well, even the special effects, almost 50 years later.
Yeah, one of the more impressive Hammer films.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And now for something completely different.
A short film.
Well,
sort of a film.
We always have short films.
It's kind of a music video.
This is a music video, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever done a music video before.
No, but it's a horror one.
It's short. It's got horror.
And it's
you just have to listen to singing when you're at it.
And it's a decent song with lyrics that, tell a story.
I would give the song a definite meh. But the video is good.
Well, just listening to the song without the video would not be that great.
Yeah.
It's definitely a package deal.
The song doesn't really have much to do with the video either.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Does it?
It tells the story. Yeah.
All right.
It's the kid's point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's called Wolfie's Just Fine, A New Beginning. It's the official music video. And this is written, directed, and edited by John LaJoy, who does a lot of YouTube videos of very funny songs.
Yeah, you should really check out his stuff.
Yeah, most of his songs are... Well, is it most of it or just the ones we've seen? A lot of really funny songs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know if that's really his specialty, but he's very good at
comedy.
it.
Comedy is his specialty. Yeah, and skits. A lot of skits and humorous shorts.
Well, this one isn't funny. It's more straight up horror, but it's good.
Yeah.
Stars Gabriel Bateman, Andrew Fox, Bodie Neem, Leah Kilpatrick, David Rispoli, and Frederick Lawrence. Runtime around 5 minutes. Go to the site or check out the show notes. We'll have a link to the video. You can watch it on YouTube. It's free.
Does that remind you of anyone?
We stopped doing video before you ever got to wear your Freddy mask.
Yeah,
your
I
Jason
know.
mask.
I know.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all about Jason, this music video.
It certainly is. It's the first horror movie this kid has ever seen, and it affects him.
Yeah, it does. And he puts himself in it.
Yes, he does.
Imagines himself in it, trying to intervene and stop the murders from happening. Well, I'm spoiling it.
Yeah. Well, this is a music video by John LaJoy, better known for his comedic music videos. It revolves around a young boy who watches the Friday the 13th movies for the very first time. Without giving too much away, it makes a strong impression on him. Yeah. Basically, he's in. Was it the first movie or the second? I don't remember which Friday the 13th film was which anymore.
I don't think this was the first movie, but
Probably not.
But I'm not positive.
Yeah,
this was a scene out of one of the movies.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, the young naked couple
they
out in the
recreate.
woods having sex, and he gets up to go pee, and she lays there, and Freddy cuts her head off
Jason.
Why do I keep doing that?
Jason.
Not Freddy. Freddy's not that good. Jason, he's the entertaining one.
Yeah.
No matter which way I go, I'm going to tick off somebody.
Uh-huh.
Yes, this is Jason, who cuts her head off with garden clippers. And if you've seen the Friday the 13th movies, you know which scene I'm talking about because it's really good. And then later on, the boyfriend comes back and he ties his head to a tree with a belt and squeezes. His brains crush out. It's pretty cool. It's a good scene.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's this little 12-year-old or however old this kid is, and he's there watching the whole thing. And I wasn't sure if he was trying to stop it or if he was really just turned on by the whole deal.
Well, I think he was kind of turned on by
A little of both.
her nudiness. And, yeah.
This kid is a serial killer in the making.
Nah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this was inspiration.
Huh.
You thought he
becomes Michael Myers.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Yeah.
No, I don't.
I had this great role model growing up.
That's not the impression I got. But
I totally did.
Watch it for yourself and see what you think.
Yeah, the music is fine, but the story portrayed in the video is really excellent. And I don't know if they merged the boy into old footage or just reshot the scenes from the Friday the 13th movies with the inclusion of the boy. I think it was the latter part.
Reshot.
Yeah, it was a reshot.
Yeah.
But it was really well done.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And more than a little nostalgic. So every child sees his first horror movie at some point in their lives, and it usually does leave them with some kind of an impression. More in some than others, but the way it's handled here is really a lot of fun. Whether you like this kind of music or not, I recommend the video just for the story it tells. Yeah, it's good. So, what could beat Jason in a fight?
I bet Brightburn could.
Superman! Superboy!
Superboy? Yeah, well.
But would Superboy fight Jason?
What would happen if Superboy was crazy and autistic?
Autistic? He's not autistic.
I think he was kind of. Obsessive OCD, the way he was drawing over and over in the tablet, the emblem and the...
Okay, I thought he was just, insane a little bit. And
Technically,
I guess there's a fine line.
That's the impression I got. Yeah, that there was some autism or autistic behavior there. I think.
Okay, I thought he was just a murdering alien
or OCD or definitely nuts. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, not that
he was being raised as human, but he's got
autistic
evil
is
aliens
insane,
in
but
there.
It was more than just autistic. It was but I got the impression there was some of that in there too.
Okay. Yeah, the concept of the movie is what if Superboy turned out evil?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is really it right there. That's the end. Goodbye.
Yeah, imagine that. And then, yeah.
Okay, so this came out in 2019, and the trailers showed, the rocket ship landing and out in the farm, and the parents going out and finding the baby and raising him up and and him running fast and doing super stuff. And then it gets dark. But yeah, it is a retelling of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by David Yarovetsky. Written by Brian Gunn and Mark Gunn. Stars Elizabeth Banks, David Denman, Jackson Dunn. Hour 30 minutes. Want to buy one? You know where to go. Did you like it?
I did. I
did too.
I was very entertained.
Yeah, I had heard some bad things about it.
And that kid, Brandon Breyer, what an actor.
He's good.
No, that's the character name. Sorry, Jackson Dunn is the actor's.
Yeah.
The character is Brandon Breyer. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was actually better than I was expecting. Yeah, you figure evil Superboy, how good could it be? But yeah, it's pretty good.
Darn good. Yeah.
Well, the Bryers, Tori and Kyle, are working on their infertility problem, but they aren't having much luck in conceiving anything. Suddenly, here's some timing for you. Suddenly, there's a loud bang and the power goes out. There's a red glow out in their field. We then get a montage of baby pictures, and it's clear that they had a baby somehow. We then jump to 10 years later, and the baby's name is Brandon. We see in school that Brandon knows all about wasps and bees and hives and things.
And he's unusually intelligent.
Wasps are predators, he explains. Otherwise, he appears to be a perfectly normal kid. Something in the barn activates, and Brandon has a seizure that night. Something is activated.
Mm-hmm.
Tori, because you know how Superboy's father did, they planted the remains of the spaceship under the barn.
Well, and that kind of made me wonder, too, how much, if he hadn't been in range of the spaceship, or, did the spaceship, was this an ulterior motive, a bigger plan by an alien race, send this being to Earth, let him grow up a little bit, and then, use this spaceship to twist his mind.
We have no idea where this kid came from or why.
Yeah,
there's no Jor-El or Krypton that we know of.
They don't talk about that at all.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah, but if without the influence of the spaceship, I wondered, how much of that was driving him insane.
Did the spaceship activate him, or was he hitting like puberty or something, which activated something in the ship?
Yeah, he activated the ship. It's hard to say. Yeah,
these two things happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
Well, Tori follows Brandon out into the barn that night, and she finds him trying to break into the padlocked cellar under the barn and mumbling in a strange language. He wakes up. He was in some kind of trance or sleepwalking. The next morning, Brandon has an incident with a lawnmower and learns that he's pretty much indestructible.
But the parents already kind of had an inkling of that.
He's been showing super strength forever.
And never getting injured, never breaks a bone, never gets cut.
Never been to a doctor.
They never saw his blood. Yeah. Well, they knew, and that's why they never took him to a doctor, because they knew he wasn't right. He wasn't normal.
Not human, yes.
Yeah.
Well, on his 12th birthday, he fights with his father about a gun he got for a gift. The parents then find his porn stash, so he's kind of a normal kid.
Kinda.
And they find, well, not exactly.
Kinda. I say kinda.
And they find included several photos of internal organs and anatomy diagrams. Brandon and his dad have the talk about sexy time during a camping trip, and Brandon scares the crap out of a girl from school. Mother Tony thinks all his recent changes are due to puberty. Kyle finds Brandon being creepy around the chickens.
And we'll just leave that there.
What you gonna do with them chickens? Well, the next night, something kills all the chickens. He crushes the girl at school's hand and then gets suspended for it. The thing in the barn still calls out to him at night, and Brandon starts to figure out the language that it's talking in. He once again goes into a trance and starts speaking in the language as he floats above the thing. He falls in and gets cut on the metal down there. He's never been cut or injured in his life until that moment. What could it be?
Sort of
kryptonite?
Sort of kryptonite-ish.
Tony explains that Brandon came from a crashed spaceship 10 years ago. The ship is buried under the barn. And that's the first time Brandon knows any of this.
Yeah, they did not tell him any of this before. He thought that he was just, born like a normal kid.
So if you got a 10-year-old adopted kid and you tell him when he's 10 that, hey, you're not really our kid, they tend to get a little wild sometimes.
You're not even, from Earth.
Yeah, there's a little more than that.
Yeah.
All right, well, soon after, Brandon learns he has heat vision. Once again, he ends up in his girlfriend's bedroom, bringing her flowers. He then kills the girl's mother. Slice. The next morning, the police investigate the restaurant where she worked. It's a real mess.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon,
yeah, that's quite an attack scene. That was cool.
Yeah, all the attack scenes are cool.
Yeah, very well filmed. Very well done.
Yeah, Brandon starts seeing a counselor from school who also happens to be his aunt. At least until he starts to terrorize her, too. His uncle is next on the list, and he meets a pretty grisly death as well. The parents catch on to the problem, and Kyle decides to take Brandon out in the woods hunting, he says with quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff thinks the symbol that has been left behind spells BB, or Brandon Byer.
Yeah, and I hadn't realized it until he pointed it out. It is kind of a stylized BB.
Yeah. Also stands for Brightburn, which is the name of the town.
Yeah.
And Brendan Byer, and
yeah.
I don't know, whatever his real name is. Well, Kyle shoots Brandon in the back of the head.
Ping!
But that only makes him mad.
Well, it makes him puzzled at first. Did you shot me? And
then first you find out you're adopted, and
then he gets pissed.
Yeah. It soon all boils down to Tori and Brandon alone in the house. Can she find a weakness?
And the police show up, too, adding to the hilarity.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite a scene, yeah.
Well, I don't remember hearing about any kind of lawsuit involving this film in D.C., so they must have changed enough about the Superman origin story to steer clear of the lawsuits. But no one is going to miss out on spotting the similarities between the two stories.
Oh, absolutely.
It is so insanely obvious.
Yeah.
Brightburn is the name of the town, just like Smallville. You just know that if the Kryptonians from Superman comics ever achieved regular spaceflight, there'd be a whole lot more of this kind of thing going on than the heroic Superman from the comics.
Maybe.
If you could go to...
The Kryptonians were very evolved species, though, well, except for, Zod and his minions and, all the...
Well, you see, it already happened with
guys.
Zod. It would happen with others, too.
It probably would, yeah, if the planet hadn't blown up.
If you could go to a planet and be Superman over a bunch of people that look just like you, only were weaker, wouldn't you?
Sure be tempting.
Would you necessarily be totally altruistic?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I bet you'd have a whole lot of fun, one way or another. Well, there's no way evil Superman is going to be in any way subtle, and it's not. It's got the best poke-him-in-the-eye scene that I've ever seen, and one particular murder is jaw-droppingly good, and overall, the deaths are all extremely over the top. See what I did there?
I see what you did there with
jaw-droppingly
good, yeah.
There really aren't many real surprises here, and it's exactly what it promises, Evil Superboy. If this sounds like a story you'd be interested in, then definitely watch it. It's really well done.
Yes, it is. And speaking of other movies that were really well done,
Legend of the Muse from 2020.
I was so impressed by this one.
Yeah.
Especially considering how few things the director has done so far. At least, that's on the official IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a handful of stuff. And
not his first attempt, but
no,
very good.
Yeah, but this was, I thought, top-notch.
Yeah. Legend of the Muse, 2020, directed and written by John Burr, stars Riley Egan, Ellie Evans, and Kate Mancy, hour and 42. And this is streaming on a couple of places. Find a link in the show notes.
We got to see it early.
Yeah, but that was so long ago. It's not news anymore. We had procrastinated with the podcast for a bit. So yeah. This was hot news 4 weeks ago.
Well, the post went out there, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
The
so you see, if you're subscribed to the blog, go to horrorguys.com, sign up for the mailing list.
You get early news on these
or
things.
Put it in your RSS feeder, or just stop in every day and look. You get all these reviews way ahead of time.
You betcha.
But anyway, two guys are out fixing a flat tire, and one hears a sound in the woods. He grabs his gun to investigate. He shoots some really skinny guy who dies on the spot. A woman then comes from nowhere and stabs him. Meanwhile, an artist named Adam wakes up. The preceding bit seems to have been a dream. He then draws the woman's eyes, and credits roll. Adam then goes up to the roof to do a sketch and starts daydreaming. He sees the guy who didn't die in the pre-credits sequence hiding in the car, only it's nighttime now, and something finally gets him as well. Adam then draws a tree. Okay, what's that about? We don't know.
We don't know yet.
He's going to Hector, his neighbor, says he needs to get out of town and find some inspiration. He's going to a place that will inspire Adam, and he offers to pay Adam pretty well to drive him there, because he doesn't have a car. His tattoo looks just like the tree Adam just finished drawing.
Huh,
Must be a sign that you're supposed to follow him.
Uh-huh.
You know, being somebody who's lived in the suburbs their entire life, I cannot conceive of an adult male American who cannot drive a car.
I knew one once.
I know it happens.
It does happen, yeah.
But, wow, that's just inconceivable for somebody who's grown up in the areas I've grown up in.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
It is weird. That should be like a horror film in itself. The man who could not drive. Okay. Well, anyway, Adam bumps into Maria, his neighbor. She invites him to a gallery tonight. And he is an artist. He goes, but doesn't really fit in with the crazy artsy people that are there. He meets the gallery owner, who explains that every true artist has something to inspire him. Find her. Your muse.
Yeah, he kind of clicks with her.
Yeah.
She's a cool character. I liked her a lot.
He decides to drive Hector where he wants to go after all. Turns out, Hector's a drug dealer who has come out to a house in the country to pick up his product. But it's not there because the two carriers, who must be real people after all, have not brought him anything. They're the ones that were killed in the pre-credit sequence.
Oops.
He runs out of the house and the shooting begins. As they drive away, they nearly run over a woman in the road and find the missing guy's truck, along with the body of one of them. Adam sees the girl standing nearby. Hector shoots at her, and then they drive off. When they get home, Adam starts painting again. He paints the girl in the woods, and it looks really good.
The art was really good in this. Yeah.
Minutes later, he finds the real girl standing in his apartment. Could it be that he has finally found his muse? Will he see her again? Is she everything he's hoped she would be? Will he be able to get away from her when he finds out that she is? Tune in and find out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this one really doesn't slow down at any point. From the trailers, I was expecting something a lot more slow-paced and romantic, but this really has a lot going on. The characters are all very distinct and well thought out. Even the less important characters, like the landlord, are interesting in their own ways. We get well over halfway through the story before we learn what this girl is. A creature from Irish legend. And that's when it gets really fun. The climax goes about the way you'd expect, with the spirit jealous of the live girl. Still, it's good to the end, and well acted, well written, and well directed.
With good special effects, too.
Yeah, very cool.
Pretty high body count.
Yeah, most of these characters that I've mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I completely overlooked the jerk guy
Hector?
that was in it. No, the other guy, the boyfriend.
Oh yeah.
That was Lou Ferrigno Jr. Lou Ferrigno's son.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, it's a relatively small part, but a crucial part.
He didn't look anything like him that I could tell.
Not much. Yeah. Anyway,
I didn't know he even hacked it. I didn't know there was a son.
I do now. We do now. Everybody does now.
The Hulk's young
Lou
son.
Lou Ferrigno Jr. was born in 1984.
The Hulkling.
And he's
Maybe
got
not.
a acting credit list of 40 acting credits.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know he existed. I learned something this week. All right, well, that is our show. Thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at the website, horrorguys.com, for news and horror updates. Sign up for the email list. Get a review in your mailbox 4 or 5 times a week before the podcast comes out. This podcast is recorded, mostly made up of the reviews that go on the site during the week. So if you get to the site, you'll get there first. Okay, and you can also contact us through there. So get ready for next week, where we'll be watching some more classics. We'll begin with Bela Lugosi, Return of the Vampire from 1943. is it a sequel to Dracula or is it not?
Well, that's a good question.
Yes.
It's complicated.
We'll do The Horror of Frankenstein from 1970. The Room from 2019.
A Shudder exclusive.
And finally, VHS from 2012.
Finally got around to seeing that.
And it's a lot more dated than I thought it would be.
Well, it's VHS.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize it was that important to the plot.
It's kind of crucial.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And we're the Horror Guys, and we'll see you when?
Next week.
You betcha.
See ya.
Bye.